Hiya, thanks for joining me today on Dragon's Teeth for an update of my Age of Sail project. Now, it's been a little while since I've been into this because I've had a couple of other things on the go, most particularly my shed clear out. Everything is cleared out now, we've got the painting done, but there's still maybe 2 more days of work to do. We're going to put in some insulation, we're going to sort the floor out, and then of course get everything laid out. So that's not quite ready yet, which means I'm in a bit of a halfway house at the moment because I can film in the shed, but all my painting setup is still in the kitchen. So that's where I am today. The other project that's been taking up a bit of time is my Vampire Count 10mm War Master Army. I had to get all those painted up and based because I had a couple of games lined up, which I reported on elsewhere on the channel. And I have to say, after spending time painting 10mm figures and 1/1200 ships, where the figure height would be 1.5mm, I'm going to be very glad to get back to painting 28mm and being able to see what I'm doing without having to wear a lot of magnification stuff. Last time we were looking at basing and getting the basic block colours down. I've pretty much done the French fleet as far as the main part of the ships go. I'll show you in a minute where I'm up to. I've still got some work to do on the British fleet, but I'm going to start working on the masts now. That's what we'll be looking at mostly today. And I did have a bit of a disaster because you may remember I had a cunning plan. I had a cunning plan that I would put all the masts in a little box with the leaflet you get with the Navwar ship, so I knew exactly which mast went with which ship. Well, that was great until this fell over, or got knocked over, or jumped off the table. However it happened, and almost all these little trays came out, and I was left with just a mix of masts on the floor. So at some point I've got to try and match the right mast to the right ship. To be honest, they're all pretty much the same. It's fairly obvious the bigger ship will have the bigger mast and everything else. But if you do ever see my ships and spot that one has got the wrong masts on, please don't tell me. Alright, that's enough of my tales of woe. Let's get on with some painting. So here's one of the bigger French ships. The French ships are all done sides and top, and the British I've got to do the sides yet. So the top I've just gone for a sort of tan with some darker colours in and then given that a wash. A little bit of silver on the teeny tiny cannons. I don't know if you can just see those, just to give a little bit of contrast and detail. And the sides for the French ships, this is the Commerce de Marseille 120 gun ship. So the sides for the French I've done in red and the British will be done in yellow. And the bases are all done as well. So that's come out not too bad. I'm happy with that, again, as a gaming piece. As I said before, these Navwar moulds, well, I don't know if they're using the same moulds, presumably they get renewed. But they're the same models as, what, 30, 40 years ago. And I think for gaming purposes, they're fine. Detail can be a little bit soft in places. The bigger ships, it's easier to pick out the detail. But if I show you one of the smaller ones, so the top detail is the same pretty much, but the side detail I find on the smaller ships is a little more difficult to get. But nonetheless, I think that's looking fine. No doubt there'll be a few little bits in there I shall go and touch up later on. But what I'm going to do now is, having got all the French fleet done, I'm going to start on the masts. Yeah, just one other thing is, I don't know what colour a lot of these bits and pieces of the ship should be, so I've just kind of improvised, and really I've gone for a standard finish across all of the ships. So it might no doubt be that the jib spars or something, whatever they're called, should be painted bright blue, or the bowsprit should be yellow or something. But again, as I said at the start, I'm not really going for a representation of a specific ship. these are the general representations. So I've really gone more for a uniform look across all of the ships. I'm going to start with the Pomone because that's one that I do have all the masts in the right box for. And I was thinking about how I'm going to paint these and what the best way to hold them was. And I found this I ordered online. So it's a sort of plastic base with all these holes in. And you put these little stands in that have a crocodile clip on the end. But the crocodile clip, it's not bare metal, it has a little bit of plastic there. So I thought that should do for holding these sort of small pieces very nicely. In terms of paint, I'm going to go for just the standard brown for the masts, and then some sort of what, maybe a slightly off-white. I don't want to do pure white for the sails, but slightly off-white. And of course, painting a few little bits and pieces of detail here and there where it is required. So I've got my 3 main masts. This one is separate. I'll mount this one up in a moment. And I've got my jib sail there and the bowsprit. And I'm using one of my old coat d'arms paints because these ones have lasted. The Tamiya paints have largely dried up, but these coat d'arms ones have actually lasted very well considering. And while looking through my paints, I did come across this one. It's a Tamiya colour, and the name of it is Flat Earth. That tickled me. I thought it's ironic that it comes in a round jar. All right, mate, it's not a globe, I suppose, but there you go. Flat Earth, marvellous. Straightforward enough, just brown all the way up and down. And I'm just having to hold these, what would you call them, spindles or whatever. They're not a really tight fit into the bottom, so that there is a bit of movement in them, but they're easy to hold in place. And as I said, with these Navwar models, you get, for me, enough detail for gaming. You can get more detailed models, which do look very nice, but they are much more expensive. So what I liked about these models was it was very reasonably priced just to get a couple of fleets, and you can get started very quickly. We did play a game a couple of weeks back that Roger brought in. I think they were Osprey rules for Age of Sail, and he had some very nice models with those. I'm not sure if they were attached to those specific rules or not, but they were very nice sort of based and pre-painted models. And that seems to be a common feature with modern games. You don't just buy the rules on their own and then go out and buy your figures. What I find you tend to get now is a big box that has the rules, has pre-assembled and pre-painted models, usually on plastic bases. You get all your cards and counters and other bits and pieces. Everything comes in a package. And of course you probably pay a bit extra for that, but you can literally then play out of the box. So if you're not into painting and all this fiddly stuff, then that is an option. And as I said, those models were very nicely detailed, and there's another company, I think it's Langton Models, who do very nice detailed ships in this scale as well. They come with photo etch parts, I think, for the rat lines, but they are quite a bit more expensive. And that just leaves the 4 masts to do, which I placed on here separately. The only thing I would say with these masts is the actual masts themselves are a little bit fragile, and they do bend quite easily. Those that I dropped, some of them have been bent, so I would advise you bend them back very carefully because they can be prone to break. And I'll probably go over these little areas where you've got, I don't know if that's rope around or whatever it is, and paint those in a contrast colour, maybe black. And again, I don't know if that's strictly accurate for the time, but as long as it looks okay, you know, we're not doing anything sort of neon yellow or bright purple or something, or even deep purple. There's enough smoke on the water in this as it is. So I'm going to finish these off and put these aside to dry. I'll probably do 1 or 2 other sets while that is drying. And then I'll come back and we'll have a look at painting the sails. As I said, I didn't want my sails just to be plain flat white, but obviously that's going to be the main colour. So I'm just using a Humbrol matte white there. I'm going to give it a bit of a tinge with a Coat Arms Oriental Flesh. And then I thought after that I'd try just giving a wash just to get a bit more variation of tone in there. And that's a Vallejo Flesh wash. So I've taken these out the stands now just so I can get better access to everything. And we're mixing that white. We're going to take just a tiny little bit of that flesh colour. Just to give us that slightly off-white sort of look. And again, on these sails, there's not particularly a lot of detail. In those Langton miniatures, you get nice folds and creases in the sails. So yeah, that's looking fine. We're getting a nice slightly off-white tone there. That'll be accentuated when I do the wash, of course. So let's do the back. And it gives me a chance to tidy up where I painted the masts. Incidentally, I mentioned magnification earlier for painting these teeny tiny figures, and I found the best thing is reading glasses, but rather than the usual ones that I wear for reading, I got a couple of pairs of 2.5 and 3, and they do the job really well. So that's a bit of a sort of a cheaper option than going for your full magnification goggles and that kind of setup. And also, as I said, I'm painting in the kitchen still at the moment, so it's a bit of an ad hoc setup. I've got a desk light and the kitchen lights on, and it is daytime, but we don't get a lot of natural light in the kitchen. I finished the sails for Le Pomone and also Le Pompey as well, which is the 74 gun ship. So I'm just getting my Vallejo wash now, and I'm going to apply that. There is a little bit of texture on some of these sails. On the larger ones, we've actually got some faint engraved lines. So that will hopefully help give us a little bit of depth. And for applying wash, I always use a flat tipped brush. Sometimes you need to add a little bit of water, I find. Sometimes not. A little bit too much water in that case. So I'll just dry brush that out a bit. And as I say, really, it's just to give a little more depth. What I might do once I've done the wash is go over and maybe add a little bit of highlight in places, a little bit of dry brushed white. So let's just do this sail as well. I've got 3 large sails on the Le Pomone. And of course, I'm always going to have to go back and touch up just a couple of little areas. It's the worst combination, isn't it, where you're painting white and then black right next to it. So there we go. I'm having a little bit of trouble sort of seeing what exact colour that is. The light is pretty bad now, and I've only got, say, my overhead kitchen lights and my single lamp here. So I shall review that in natural daylight in the morning. But the effect is working. And these smaller sails, these have no real sort of texture on at all to speak of. So I'm going to water that down a little. So that's Le Pompey sails done. I shall continue with Le Pomone and then get a few more of these done before the light gives out completely. That's it for this time. Next time I should hopefully have all my British ships finished as well and all of the sails done. So what I'll do next time is actually start fixing the masts to the ships, and then perhaps we'll get into a little bit of rigging as well. As I said before, I'm going to keep the rigging really basic because these are gaming models rather than show models. Though I might at some point get some of that photo etch that I mentioned earlier from Langton Miniatures. You can buy them as separate packs to do your rat lines and everything else. So I might get a couple of packs of those just to experiment with and see how they look. Alright, that's it for now. Thanks again for watching. As always, please do like, share and subscribe if you're enjoying the channel. Any comments, questions or corrections, hints or tips gratefully received. And I'll see you next time.